you. This morning we have with us, I'll just get everybody to introduce themselves before we kick off. I'm Belinda Ward, your chair, and Paihia subdivision representative for the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board. I'll start with our deputy chair. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Frank Owen, deputy chair, representing the Kerikeri subdivision. Good morning to you all.
Girls, Manuela.
Girls, oh, I haven't been called the girl for a long time. Good morning.
Girls first.
My name is Manuela Kimihonau, and I'm representing the Russell Opua subdivision. Welcome.
Run away. You're muted.
Morena, ko manu wai as tuku ingoa no Waiomi o Ahau. I'm the community board representative for the Moerewa Kawakawa subdivision. I'm hot desking from the Ngāti Trust Board in Whangarei, loving the online life. I hope everyone's staying safe out there, whānau. Kia ora.
Lane, are you there? We have Lane and Bruce. We'll come back to them. We have our councillor representative.
Tēnā tātou katoa ko Rachel Smith toku ingoa no Kerikeri aho. So my name is Rachel Smith and I am the councillor appointed to the community board in support.
Do we also have David Clendon there?
Yes, you do. Good morning. Yeah, David Clendon. I'm a non-voting member of the board based in Kerikeri.
Thanks, David. Thanks for joining us. And we have we have a CEO here.
Kia ora koutou katoa, Sean Clark, CEO of Far North District Council. I've just spent half an hour with the board on stuff that they like to talk to me about, and I'm with you for just half an hour at the behest of Belinda, the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Malima, we have some staff here.
Kia ora koutou, Malima Baker tōku ingoa I a ngā mai au no Ngāti Kōwha ki Ngāti Tiara Ngāti Hine, also Democracy Services Advisor for Bay of Islands Whangaroa Community Board today. It's a pleasure and an honour, everybody.
Thank you. We have another staff member here, Will.
Kia ora, Madam Chair, Will Taylor here, General Manager Corporate Services, privileged to live within the boundary of this wonderful community board, living in gorgeous Paihia. Just taking a bit of an interest in what you're doing this morning, if that's all right, Madam Chair.
Thanks, well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have board member Mills. Bruce, have you got your mic on? No? I think they're still in morning tea mode. We have some other staff with us, I see. Please introduce yourself if we can't see you. I can't see everybody on the screen.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. My name is Catherine True and I'm the funding advisor for Far North District Council.
Very important person. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, Kia ora, I'm Joshna Pandey. I've just joined the Democracy Services team residing in Kerikeri.
Thanks, Joshna.
Lane Air, just back from a coffee break, and Uncle Bruce. And the black thing is Willie.
Black and we'll have an agenda.
Thank you. If we got. Thank you, Aisha. Very important role as well. So with that, we will move on.
Good morning.
Oh,
sorry.
Somebody else?
Good morning, all. Elizabeth Stacey, traffic safety engineer from the NTA. Just here to have a bit of a listen this morning. Thank you so much for letting me join in.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Right, so we will move on and open our meeting with a karakia, an opening prayer. And I will ask Member Wells if she would like, Manawa, if you would like to open for us today, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Kia ora whānau. Ai o ki te aurangi, ai o ki te whenua, ai o ki te au katoa, ai o ki a hau. Peace to the universe, peace to the land, peace to all things, and peace to me. I'm just going to add on one of our aspirations for our board is that we ask through the board's discussions and decisions, the representatives elected may advocate on behalf of the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa community with aroha, imagination, skill and wisdom to achieve a fairer and more united community that enhances the well-being of the community and solves the community's problems efficiently and effectively. Ngā mihi.
Thank you for that. Now we will move on to apologies, but before I do so, just for the members of the public out there to inform you that we will be voting by division, which means it will be coming up on the screen and everyone will be voting individually throughout the meeting. With that, I will call apologies from member Dave Hukwe-Kupa, who has been called in with a heavy workload due to the COVID. He won't be joining us today. And I also have members, Lane E and Frank Owen, have to leave us before midday today. So hopefully we can get through this meeting quite quickly so we don't end up with just a handful of us. So I'll move those apologies. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Manawai. Without that pop-up there for voting in division, I will put that, and all those in favour, put your hand up. Thank you. Carried. Apologies, carried. Thank you very much. So we will move on to, we have with us today, we don't have any funding applications, so we have no speakers and we have no public open forum speakers, but I have invited Rainbow Rangatahi to present to us today a deputation. We have probably half a dozen people joining us online. And hello, Jenny. I see Jenny Prisk there. Good morning to you. Welcome. So we have speakers Rachel and Steve Minders and Therese Wickbaum from Bald Angels. Would you like to introduce yourself to us and let us know what you're talking about? You have 10 minutes and we can ask, if time permits, that we extend that, and also for any questions at the end of your deputation. Thank you. That would be lovely. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Belinda. Kia ora koutou katoa. We really appreciate the opportunity to share our community-led development supporting Rainbow Rangatahi with you all today. But first, I'd like to acknowledge all of you and the opportunities and energy and support that you give to our communities. In particular, even though Dave's not here today, I just want to acknowledge his support. He's been very kind and generous with his guidance from the very beginning. And especially to Rachel Smith for her guidance and hands-on support for this kaupapa. Thank you, Rachel. I'd also like to acknowledge some very special people here with me today. Now, one is not here yet, but she may be popping in. She did say she'd be here, and that is Nora Rameka, our valued partner and representative of Ngāti Rehia. So I hope she's not having trouble getting in. Jenny Prisk, an angel volunteer, international human rights advocate, and rangatahi mentor. Rachel and Steve Minders, parents and community members who will share their story with you. But the most important person here today is B. Can we all see B?
No, I can't see B.
B, are you going to come on? Turn your video on, hun.
Yes, here he is.
B's too shy to speak today, but he's one of the bravest people I've met recently. His story is his own, but it reflects that of many rangatahi across our motu. You're probably aware that Bald Angels Mahi is to support youth to thrive. We're known mostly for our emergency support, but our strategic strength and our mahi is really about supporting youth to thrive. We believe all youth deserve to thrive, yet sadly so many don't have that opportunity, especially here in Te Tātaukaro. As a trusted local organisation with a wide net of valued partnerships across the far north in business, social services, education, health, our strengths are absolutely in community connectivity. And yet when this whānau reached out and asked for support to fund a social network for their transgender son, it was with much surprise and a lot of disappointment that we were unable to locate anything north of Whangarei. So, with support from national organisations and some amazing locals across the Bay of Islands, we've achieved some great work in setting the foundation for our youth to drive this kaupapa forward as they need it. Our mission is to co-create a community of safe spaces defined by rangatahi. Our vision is that all rangatahi are empowered, seen, heard and supported in Te Tātaukaro. We will do this by engaging our rangatahi and co-creating around the mission and vision as we travel this journey. We will listen to our rangatahi, awhi them, elevate, empower and protect them. And we will celebrate them. But we need your support to help us communicate this important kaupapa to our community by way of placemaking initiatives. And I'll speak to those specifically in a moment, but first, let's hear B's story from his parents. Over to you, Rachel and Steve.
Thank you, Trace. Hi, I'm Rachel, B's mum. Our journey hasn't been easy since B came out to us as transgender. As parents, we haven't got it right all the time. We've made mistakes and probably will continue to stuff up, but all we want is to love B and respect his identity. That means supporting him, advocating for him when necessary, and getting support for him and ourselves. We reached out to the doctors, counsellors and medical professionals, and they couldn't provide the support B needed. So we reached out to Therese. As Therese said, she couldn't find anything for the rainbow community, so she invited us to join her in helping to create this safe place for our rainbow youth. The changes in B since we've started attending these planning meetings has been phenomenal. At first, he wouldn't speak to anyone and would pass us post-it notes if he wanted to say anything. Now, a few meetings in, he quite comfortably speaks for himself and shares his great ideas. This newfound confidence is evident in every area of his life. He is now investigating what his life will look like and making plans to achieve it, even when it makes him feel uncomfortable. This confirms the need for support and community for our rainbow youth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm B's dad. B is 16 years old. He was born as a girl, but was never comfortable in that body. He came out to us as transgender about 2 years ago when he was 14. He had known for a little while before that, but he'd been afraid to tell us because of what our reaction might be. Now, as we navigate this new chapter, we just want the best for him. We want to learn how to be parents of a transgender boy, as well as learning a whole new vocabulary. We're really honoured to be working with Therese and the Bald Angels for the Rainbow Rangatahi. One of the things that has really struck me as we've been doing this, and that I think has been really helpful for B, is interacting with adults from the rainbow community. We sort of felt like we were on our own, that there weren't a lot of LGBT people up in the mid and far north. And so to meet people that are successful and have just navigated being a teenager successfully and are now happy, thriving adults in the rainbow community has been amazing. We've made some really great friendships. One of the reasons we're doing this is something that really spoke to us was the statistics around suicide. Now, we know that teen suicide is a big problem, especially up here in Te Tātaukaro. In the rainbow community, in a study done in 2017 around New Zealand, 1 in 2 LGBT kids have been hit or hurt at school in the previous year. LGBT youth were 3 times more likely to be bullied each week at school. And 1 in 5 young people in the LGBT community has attempted to commit suicide in the previous year, which is 4 times higher than their heterosexual peers. A study done in Australia last year said 60% of rainbow youth that they surveyed have seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. Research has shown that there are different factors that contribute to the increase in risk of suicide in LGBT communities, especially in young people, such as being rejected at home, at school, at church, by other communities, being bullied, and the lack of access to safe or supportive spaces, and the lack of mental health care. That just breaks our heart. Bees told us that most of his friends that are transgender, non-binary, or otherwise in the rainbow community have either seriously considered or attempted suicide. And it breaks our hearts that this is happening in our community, and we just really want to be part of the solution and creating a safe space where kids can come and just be themselves without fear of anything, just being accepted and loved. Thanks, Therese.
Thanks, Rachel and Steve and Bea. As you've heard, it is absolutely critical that we build an inclusive and respectful community, and we must have networks in place to keep amazing people like Bea and his parents safe and supported. And we must physically signal to our at-risk, highly vulnerable tamariki that we value them and respect them, no matter how they identify. We're working with Ngāti Rehia to develop meaningful context from a Te Ao Māori perspective, and we will be applying for funding once we complete budgets. But what we're proposing in the placemaking space will be guided by procedural stuff regarding art and public spaces, etc. But our plans include rainbow crossings in our towns, starting with Kirikiri, sidewalk decals, plus rainbow benches in public spaces, and hopefully at our schools. It's really important to this kaupapa that you, the community board, supports it in principle, and that's what we're here asking you today. When our young LGBTQI plus people are at such high risk of truancy, self-harm and suicide through exclusion and isolation, how can we not make this a priority? All our tamariki deserve to thrive. The future depends on them. So thank you for your time and consideration. We're happy to take questions. I really appreciate you listening to our story. Thank you.
Thanks to you all for coming and presenting to us. I see lots of love heart symbols flashing up on our screen, a lot of feeling out there, and a lot of people perhaps relating to your cause. Any questions, please, from board members? Would you put your hand up or pop something in the chat if you have camera issues? Manawai.
Morena, ngā mihi whānau. Thank you for coming today and sharing. It's beautiful that you've brought this to our attention to make sure that we are aware. We're probably aware in many of the other spaces that we're in, but it's important that you make us formally aware in this space as well. So thank you for coming. I was very humbled by the kōrero that you shared today. You know, in addition to all of those things, we know that in our communities, Māori and Pacifica whānau, it's another layer of barriers for them as well. So it's just, yeah, really humbling to hear, and I'm really aroha for our whānau, and I'm hoping that our board moving forward will support in principle in any way we can, really, on the ground or in this space, because I know our tamariki and our tai tamariki are hurting out there. So thank you again. I love your reo. I love your words of promise of partnership, your co-creation. What a wonderful way to come in. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi manawai. Kia ora. That wasn't a question.
Thanks, Manawai. No.
No, it wasn't. It was more, it's a yay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and not a question either, just acknowledging the bravery that Steve and Rachel and B in particular, you have shown stepping into this space. You know, the political council crazy rabbit warren space is not an easy one to step into, and I really just want to acknowledge you showing up and putting your best foot forward. You're only, yeah, thank you. Too many tears.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Rachel. Lane.
When I'm going on, we'll be fine. Teresa, thank you very much for the work you do in our community, and thank you for bringing this issue forward. I guess we're all aware at some level of the hurt and the exclusion of various groups, but it needs to be brought forward, and we thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lane.
Frank.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining us. This is something I feel very strongly about. For 20 years, I lived in the Wairarapa, and my local MP was one Georgina Bayer. And Georgina and I became very close friends, and in fact, for 9 years, and not only was she the local MP, but I also worked in Parliament. And I spent many hours talking to Georgina about her journey. And it's a long, hard journey. And if there's anything I personally can do, or anything I can support this board supporting your community, please don't hesitate to ask. It's, as I say, knowing Georgina is a close friend and talking to her about issues, the journey, the struggle, you know, you are incredibly brave people and you deserve every encouragement. And please, you only need to ask. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Frank. B, I hope you were listening hard to that. And I must look up some information on Georgina and make sure you know all about her, because she was the bravest and she paved the way.
You're muted, Frank. Frank, you're muted.
Sorry. No, Georgina was a wonderful person. And as I say, I valued her as a close friend. And she certainly broadened my understanding of the issues that members of your community face.
Mm. What a privilege.
Yes, it's a village.
Any more comments or questions? Thank you all for your comments, and thank you for taking time out to come and present to us today. I don't have an application in front of me from you to discuss, but I am happy to discuss with the board later in the meeting and to put a resolution to support what you're looking to do in principle, bearing in mind you've mentioned 3 potential placemaking projects, which is rainbow crossings, benches, inclusive of, I assume you mean in reserves and public spaces, and inclusive of schools, and footpath artwork, all things that fall under our delegation, and we would welcome an application or applications from you in the future. And there is a process for that, which myself or any of the board members would be happy to help you walk through that process, and look forward to seeing some I guess a bigger picture on what it is you're wanting to do, some designs, the amount of volunteers, where you're wanting to do things, location, all of the above, and just bring it to us, and we meet on the first Thursday of each month, usually, barring one, I think, this year. So our next meeting will be 3rd of March, and then I think we're meeting the 31st of March because of Easter. So there is quite a lead-in time frame. So you to get it into our agenda or to get it to the board members, or to the staff to include it. I've got a hand up there. I can't quite see it. Maybe Catherine, is it? I can't
It
see.
is.
Yeah,
Thank you,
hi,
Madam
Catherine.
Chair. I was also going to say things like the Rainbow Crossing, you could also apply for funding to Creative Communities, which meets quarterly. You've missed the March cutoff. Well, the March cutoff is next week, but you could also go for the one in June. So there are other funding sources as well that you might be wanting to consider. I'm here. You can always call me.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Belinda. I assume, I mean, I've never applied for community board funding before. I assume you have a format, and like you say, there's a lead-in time. We were hoping to get something done in February. It is Pride Month. Obviously, with what's happening in the community, things are slowing down. People are out of the mix. So whether we can get anything started in February with your support, I don't know, but certainly we'd like to roll this out through the other towns in the Rohe. So certainly there'll be opportunity to apply for funding as we move forward because of all the other towns. So I look forward to catching up with whomever I need to catch up with to find out all of the procedural information.
Okay, Therese. Well, I'm not 100% sure myself on the placemaking side of it because we don't actually have a policy in place. We have guidelines basic guidelines to actually implement a project, and we do in this virtual world have the advantage of being able to meet outside of formal meeting dates. So if you do have some designs and can come up with something within this month, and we pass a resolution later in the day to support in principle your placemaking kaupapa, then we can actually perhaps tag something toward we don't fund retrospectively, but as I say, we could have a special meeting and tag something towards a project. I can't speak on behalf of all board members because obviously we would have to have the wider discussion and put it to the vote. But I'm just putting it out there that if you're moving on your projects, then please don't let us interfere with your momentum. We would like to be on that journey with you as well, and we'll try and do whatever we can to support that. Rachel would like to comment further.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it may be more appropriate when we discuss it later as a board, but perhaps just flagging to the Rainbow Rangatahi team that if I bring the specifics, especially around the park benches after our hikoi with B through the CBD the other day, and identify those specific locations to the board, bring them up to speed with where we're at with the Rainbow Crossing, and that might help them give a more definitive guidance, and the staff can help support with what can be done now. So maybe just flagging that we'll bring all of that up as part of our kōrero later when we pass a resolution, or when the board chooses to pass a resolution, and then Belinda or Frank or Lane or somebody can get in touch, or I can get in touch and update you as to what that looks like. Because B, I know that we've got the paint, we've got the brushes, we're good to go. We just need the process sorted. So let's make something happen in February, even though we're in such a trying time right now as a community.
Thanks for that, Rachel. And yes, we do. We are motivated to make things happen. So we're there with you. Manawai.
Kia ora. I think that I just wanted to support what my colleagues have said and our chairperson have said. Also that, if we aren't able to get things up in time for some reason, just keep in mind that June 24th is coming, Matariki. It's our first official public holiday of the year. You know, we got to be more connected with our events and our moments in our community. So please feel free to to take up that date as well, or work towards that date. And just a reminder that you know, our rainbow flag flies proud at 39 Gillies in Kawakawa. If you're ever coming by, drop in for a coffee. I know that Catherine and Olive would warmly welcome you all. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Manawai. Catherine and Olive are actually part of our team already.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Well, if there's no more discussion, Therese and Jenny, and we have Steve, Rachel, B, all of you there in the background. Nora, I assume, didn't make it. Nora Ramaka, is she here? No, okay. So with that, we will move on and we'll have a further discussion of that later in the day at the end of our meeting, and work on a resolution to put forward to definitely support you. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Have a wonderful meeting.
Thanks.
Ka kite.
Right, so we will move on to item 6.1, confirmation of the previous minutes. I will move that the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board confirm the minutes of the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board meeting held 2nd of December 2021 are a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Oh, Aroha Mike, I think the, sorry, Madam Chair, I wonder if there's an amendment for a spelling mistake on that page you were just on? Is it, or
they're
proposed
actually,
instead of proposed?
There are several amendments,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. So we will add that to them, Manawai, thank you. So I have Frank seconded that to get that on the table and discuss any amendments which we will add. So I didn't pick up that spelling mistake. It is...
I think it's in the motion itself. A, 1A. Support the proposed.
Sorry, I'm looking for it. Can you point that out, please? What page? 12, is it?
Item 6.1, it's in the motion that we're passing today. So 1A, support the proposed. It's not technically part of the minutes, but it's going to be written in.
Have you got that, Marlema?
It's just on screen
13,
now.
Page 13.
Right, so moving on the same page, we have under item 8.1, we have, I wasn't happy with the way that A, B, C and D read, so I would like to combine A and B together, because even though we knew what we were talking about, anybody reading those minutes may not, and I don't want any confusion moving forward. So if we bring support the proposed, there's the mistake, yes, beautification plan of the Paehe War Memorial Hall forecourt area, and recommend, if we add the word and, recommend that Focus Paehe consider the irrigation and ongoing maintenance costs, and make that A collectively, so that it doesn't read as two separate items, it's the same issue, and then C will become B and D will become C. Thanks, Marlema. On that, say over the page on page 14, you've got all the amendments there now. So over the page on page 14, Item 8.3B, the funding application for Kirikiri Croquet Club. Frank Owen actually voted against. And item 8.3C, the funding application for Magic Playhouse towards Morph, Lane Eyre abstained.
Through the chair, was also noted that the setting of the 2022 meeting schedule report was a supplementary report and you wished it recorded as such.
Thank you. I think it was confusing having two 8.1s in the same minutes. We had an 8.1 on page 13 and then we had a supplementary agenda which was 8.1, but it didn't actually note that it was a supplementary report. So if that could be noted just to save any confusion from anybody reading those minutes. Thank you. Is everybody happy with those amendments? So I so move. Frank, you happy with those amendments, your seconder?
Yep, I'm happy.
Right, I'll put that to the vote. Yes from me, thank you. Lane? You're muted, Lane.
Yes, yes, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Aye, Payana.
Dave's absent and Rachel abstains. Thank you, carried. Right, we'll move on to item 7.1, the chairperson's reports. That the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board note the reports from Chair Belinda Ward, members Manuela Gmuir-Hornell and Dave Hukwaikupa. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Manawai. Second, Elaine. I just would like to ask you, it's great that I see we are receiving on page 18 the resource lists of the resource consents. And I'm just wanting to query with members as to whether or not you have actually received these via email and made comment. Discussion, please. The Kirikiri members, have you received Mackenzie Road, Stanners Road, and I'm not sure of the location on the last one. I think it may be to do with the Makana.
I received the Makana one, Madam Chair, but I don't have recollection of the others. And I go through my emails fairly diligently, but I did receive the one on Makana.
Frank, did you receive those?
My recollection is the same as Lane's.
Okay, and Manuela, there's two Russell, two in your area. Did you receive those?
Yeah, we talked about that the last meeting, I thought.
Were these the same ones?
That's what I'm thinking, and I did reply, and that's the only ones I saw from Kirikiri is the Makana one, and that's what we talked about, but I can't recall having any other ones. Sorry.
No, okay.
Same, so it's still patchy.
So it's great receiving these, but because we only have 5 working days to make comment, as you know, as board members, we don't make submissions on the resource consents, but we are invited to comment to the planners. It's great that we're receiving them because we have gone for quite a period of time without being involved in receiving resource consent. So it's great work from staff that they are now coming to our attention. I might add it's never too late to make a comment to the planner because it does take quite some time for them to compile their report. And I have personally had instances where planners have contacted me or gone back to the report to see whether they have actually taken into account any issues raised on behalf of the community by ourselves or either as a board member. So I just see that we do have Sean present with us, and we're just really wanting to know whether or not we're getting these very delayed after the event, or whether it's acknowledgement of the emails that have been forwarded to us as a result of the lodgement of that resource consent. some clarification around that, but great to be seeing that's there. Those links, there is a number of steps sometimes to opening them, and they're extremely large documents, so it may be that they even are going into members' junk mail. So I'd ask you all to please check in your other mailboxes to make sure that those are there. Particularly, I think, with the activity that's going on at the moment with the district plan and the zone changes and things, we often see, as we did with the last district plan historically, you see a lot of activity and movement with developers and landowners pushing through consents and subdivisions and the likes to try and get ahead of the new proposed changes or the tighter rules, policies and objectives. So I think it's really important, bearing in mind we're looking at a lot of risk moving forward, and council are discussing a lot of risk management at the moment, that we actually as members get a little bit more vigilant on reading and checking out the locations of where these consents are, as your information to the planners may be invaluable. So please look that up, and we will have a check on, would be quite good if they were dated actually, just as a point of interest. So that might suffice my query as to whether or not we've received them. Sometimes we don't make comment, but if they were dated when they're put in our agenda, the date of the consent, that would give us an indication as to whether we've been notified or not. Thank you to staff listening.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Have you got that, Dolly?
I do.
Thanks.
Thank you. So to my report, any questions in relation to my report?
I just want to acknowledge with some humility, Madam Chair, that there's this relates to a conversation that our public audience were not part of before the meeting today, where we get quite honest between the Chair and members and the CEO about what's not working. There are plenty of things in our service to the community board to fix. I thank you for the expression of those in this report, and it's really good that the GM for Corporate Services and the Master of Democracy Services is here, and Will Taylor, because it's a good document for him to take away and break down and say, you know, where are the systemic problems here and how we serve you as a board. So excellent that Will's here today, and it's good that the report's honest, so thank you.
Thanks for that. And I think just with that resource consent I have listed in my report, which is not on the list on page 18, probably shows that there is some sort of disconnect there between the consent process and the notification process to members. That particular consent, just for members' interests, was actually in relation to the Waitangi National Trust land being used for concerts throughout the year, and they have actually applied for not a specific concert, but to hold up to 5 concerts per annum at the Waitangi National Trust grounds. It's a little unique for me. I've never seen bulk consent like that in the past, but I guess with COVID environment, we do have to think a little bit outside the square, and perhaps the planners are doing the same at the moment. You know, acts and concerts, depending on the popularity of the performer, can vary greatly, as can the logistics and the complications for the community relating to those concerts. So although it was kind of lumbered into one consent, I think it's pretty well managed by the Waitangi National Trust itself and council, so I didn't have grave concerns about that. And as a board, we will probably end up with the events organisers coming to us for some form of contribution toward the event or events when they do happen. Right, if there's no more questions there, moving on. Dave Hukwe-Kupa is not present with us today, but I have had a discussion with him in relation to his report, and he's pretty well laid out there his concerns throughout the last year, ongoing concerns. We have some of them actually have been addressed partly. particularly in relation, I think, to the levels of service. We did receive some information, although we're not getting full information. I think we did have some contract information come to us in one of our agendas. So unfortunately, the timeframes of those contracts, we wanted more localism and more input into them. And a lot of them were rollovers in relation to recreational services, mainly lawn mowing and trying to think what the others were. Street lighting was a big issue, wanting to deal with the fact that when a street light's out and an RFS is lodged to have it replaced, the contract didn't allow that to happen. So they had to wait for 5 lights to be out. Well, if we're going to provide under health and safety a safe environment, you know, for our communities to move around in, we need to make sure, and we're identifying that there are issues with these contracts, but we don't have input into them. So you know, fair criticism there from Dave in relation to the levels of service and not having the input into the contracts when we can identify the, you know, the health and safety issues in particular relating to those contracts. And I think the next page, 23, he also mentions health and safety as a heading, and Council are currently looking at these issues and the risks related to them. So perhaps we could also be helpful in giving some information from a community board perspective about our risks on the ground from a street perspective. Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know Dave's not here, so we can't ask him questions, but it's a great report. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I did note that there were a couple of NTA-specific things in there. And given that Elizabeth Stacey is with us today, I'm just wondering if there would be opportunity for the board to ask her a couple of questions specifically around the walking tracks. And that is a conversation, as pointed out in Dave's report, that the board's been having for a while now, and Dave's been a really heavy advocate on it, is that lower level of service of footpaths, and whether there was any update on whether or not that was going to be possible. But also maybe just raising the issue around the crossing on Kirikiri Road outside hunting and fishing. I'm not aware of what that issue is, but I'm just wondering if there may be opportunity, given that there is NTA staff here. Just wanted to flag that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Elizabeth?
So I apologize. I did not see the agenda and the issues referred to ahead of this meeting and didn't come prepared to comment. But if you have specific questions, I can do my best to provide an update. And if not, certainly take that on board to provide for your next meeting.
Thank you for that. Is there any specific questions at the moment for Elizabeth? No? Then we'll move on. Thank you, Elizabeth. You'll be on standby a little bit later. There may be 1 or 2 crop up. Manuela's report.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to your to the resource consent. It's exactly the same resource consent as in the agenda from December. So they're not new. I just had to look back to the old agenda, so they're the same ones.
Thank you for that. So from that, we can take that other than mine, we have not received any, no members have received any resource consents, which would be in line with the low number of applications for builder consent through council at that same period for the year. Thank you for that.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Elaine. I did receive one.
Thanks.
And forgive me because I'm not too sure of the time frame. It was regarding Kapiro Road. I think it was a fitness centre there. And I replied that it was just a shame that we were taking out rural land. But I noted that the facility had its own water and sewage systems and everything else. That was the only one I've seen in the last 2 or 3 months.
Thanks for that, Lane. Do we have any questions for Manuela with your report? Rachel, I just wanted to raise, and you've asked there, Manuela, in relation to second paragraph, can we know how FNDC starts planning for climate change impacts? You'll be happy to know that I sat in on a workshop on the 27th of January, which I'm not sure whether that was the first one, and that was to do with the development of a climate assessment policy, CAP, whether Sean, we have our CEO with us, whether you wanted to comment on that, that there is actually work there in relation to climate change.
I think, sorry for jumping in, there's been talk before, meetings before, that there's things happening. I think maybe it was David Clendon that talked about that in one of our meetings, and that they're looking for 3 communities, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, and one inland, to be part of kind of a pilot project. And I put my hand up straight away for Russell to be part of that, because it's really pressing in our town, like it is everywhere else, but I haven't heard since. So, and I saw that you guys had a workshop, and it would be cool if people that are interested could be included in these things, because like it'd be coming back to, we live here, we are connected to the issues, and we're connected to the people who have great knowledge on these things, and can contribute for free to the issues that are at hand.
Sure. Thanks, Manuela. Rachel, do you want to comment?
I was waiting to see if Councillor Clendon was going to pop his hand up, because he does hold the climate change portfolio. But David, I'm happy to jump in if that's easier. So Councillor Clendon represents our council at the Taitokoro Climate Change Adaptation Group, which is a pretty new collective of iwi representatives or iwi hapu representatives and council representatives from each of our 4 councils, and that's chaired by Northland Regional Council. It's pretty cool stuff. I got to attend my first workshop with them last week on a branding workshop, and the mātauranga around the table, especially from a Te Ao Māori perspective, is really, really cool. Unfortunately, as with anything with bureaucracy, perhaps the wheels aren't turning as quickly as climate change needs us to have them turning. So I don't know if David can take an update offline with you in terms of where the community expression of interest process is at. I think they've got their first meeting coming up. And just in regards to the workshop we had the other day, that was for a climate assessment policy framework. So it's very high level, but there will absolutely the acknowledgement that it needs to be collaborative and collective in the approach is right through our roadmap, and will be through our policies, and is through the action group as well. So new year, let's carry on those conversations, I guess, and hopefully David can give you an update on where the expression of interest process is at. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Rachel, for that. Sure. David or Sean, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, David here. Yeah, I'll follow up on it, Manuela, and let you know. It is work in progress. It is all painfully slow, but we have council has contracted a company to develop the policy. A couple of guys with very, very significant experience both here and in Australia, including around this adaptive planning approach, which is what you mentioned. We had originally thought that we will just amongst ourselves select 3 communities to engage with, but it's much better if it comes from those communities. So I'll have a chat to Donald and just see where we're up to with that and get back to you. In fact, I'll just put a general note out to the board. That's probably better, isn't it?
Thanks, David.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you. Just on that, our combined community board workshop is penciled in for the 9th of March. How does the board feel about requesting perhaps that as a topic, a catch-up topic for all community boards?
Are we going to attempt to try to do that online if it can't happen in person? I mean, why has that not happened before?
You mean for the combined community board?
Yeah, because we keep missing out on these, and like we said before this meeting, it's quite important that we hold these meetings, and I can't see a difference between the combined community board and community board or council meeting to be online. Or is that a technical issue?
I could address that if you like, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you.
It's not something we've thought a lot about, Manuela, because we have a workshop about every 2 weeks, and for a long period last year with the crises that we're running, we were having a workshop every week. So marshalling 29 elected members into those isn't really on our mind. We try and keep our core 10 elected members engaged on the workshop rhythm. So that could have some more conversation around it if you like. More specifically on the climate change thing, I welcome a request to bring you up to speed, because this really does matter at a very local area, at a very local level. You'll be aware, Madam Chair, that Northern Regional Council has, even though this is the world's slowest emergency, climate change, the lead times on adapting for it are quite long. And the mapping that's come out on coastal hazard zones affects a lot of properties around the far north in particular. These are people who you know, properties you know, family names that you know, and they'll all be having to make some quite big decisions around their bank loans, their insurance, and their future resale of their property as they find their footprint sitting inside some of these hazard zones over the next 50 and 100 years, 50 and 100 years, which are the two time zones that the Northern Regional Council's forecast. So yes, this is a big topic coming your way, and that's why Councillor Clendon's representing us on it at a all of region level. So we don't have to reinvent the solution 4 times for 4 councils. That's clever, but how to keep it grounded at community level is something we're open to ideas on.
Thank you for that, Sean. Manawai.
Kia ora, just referring to Manuela's comment around us maybe looking at having our combined community workshop online. I think if we aren't able to have our community board meetings and there's fewer of us in person, we're likely not to be able to meet in person, the 3 boards. So if we can move that online, that would be great. And we can always maybe look at having breakout rooms where we move into our board committees for part of that meeting. I don't know if that's a capability that our administrators on the day might be able to have, but let's get creative on it. Otherwise, you know, October is coming really quickly. We might not see each other as the 3 board member groups by that time coming around. So let's go for it. Kia ora.
Thanks, Manawai. Manuela.
Just feedback to you, Sean, about that climate change group that goes over all the councils. I found that online, and I could find it on NRC and Whangaroa City website, but there's not much on our website to follow up on this. So it might be a good idea to put that online too, to see that we're actually doing something and it's in the pipeline, because unless I couldn't find it, but I found it under other councils, not on our website.
Good tip, Manuel. I think you will
Yeah,
get that.
they also have the online meetings on YouTube that could be linked to FNDC too. Then people know what's happening.
All the minutes. Thank you.
Good suggestion. Thanks, Manuela. Right, so if there anything else for Manuela's report, any other questions? Okay, so we'll move on. We have Manawai Wells moved, Lane seconded. We'll put this to the vote. I'm a yes. Lane?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Bruce?
Yeah, say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried. So we move on to item 7.2. I'll move the recommendation that the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board receives a report entitled Statement Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Fund Account as at 31st December 2021. Do I have a seconder?
Manuela.
Thank you. Right, we've got Catherine there. If anybody has any questions, I see we have a number of unused funds, 1 refund and quite a few not uplifted. Did we get a response, Catherine, on the duck race?
It's
the Rotary.
It's not going ahead. Strangely enough, it's not going ahead. So they hadn't uplifted the funds. So what I will do is when we have, I know we've got funding applications going to our next meeting, I'll just put it in there so that we can rescind that resolution and that money can go back into the pot.
Kirikiri Football Club goes back to the 3rd of June.
I need to double check because I think some of these have been uplifted, but
Okay.
it's just not showing on this. And with the Kawakawa Community Development Plan, we are still waiting on them to send through the further information we requested on how they were planning on engaging with the community and all of that.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Catherine on those manawai?
Yes, I have followed up with our kawakawa whānau. I will follow up again. Ngā mihi hoa.
Thank you.
Right, if there's no more questions, I've put that. Manuela seconded. I'll put it to the vote. I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Ai, pai ana.
Thank you, that's carried. Now to item 7.3, we have a recommendation that the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board receive the report Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Statement of Financial Performance Activities by Ward for the period ending 31st of December 2021. Do I have a mover?
Manuela.
Thank you. Seconder?
Lane.
Thank you, Lane. I would just like to compliment the author on the font size.
Yeah.
On page 32
Me too.
in particular, we have been asking for something that we could actually read for quite some time. So, Second, if you're listening, or can somebody get the message through, or Angie, that thank you, we can actually read the font of those figures, which is fabulous. Don't think there's anything to note there other than the fact that we did, you will recall there was discussion around money being taken out of, a substantial amount of money out of our parks and reserves funds toward the relocation or uplifting of the cable on the state highway for the new Waipapa Sports Development. That has actually been reversed and returned to the account, I believe, and it was hundreds of thousands. It was a substantial amount of money. It is interesting to note, and I don't know whether this is a council policy or not, that in this report that the variance is in excess of $100,000 and significant percentage variances will be commented on. $100,000 is quite a significant amount of money. To not be commenting on anything under that, I just wondered if there was a staff member there who could just answer as to why there is a cap on that.
Through the chair, I've attempting to call Sagun into the meeting right now. He hasn't responded yet.
Oh, that's okay, Malema. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would have a pop at the answer.
Sure,
if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I suspected is that every organisation is different. The council is different in scale to central government departments. The council is different in scale to community boards, and what is significant for central government is different for the council. What is significant for the council is different from community boards. But it's any report which is written needs to be relevant for its audience. And I think the point that you're driving at, Madam Chair, is that sums under $100,000 are very significant when it comes to community board interpretation. So I'll take that on board. I'll speak to Janice and Angie and the team.
Thanks, Will, and that's exactly where I am coming from. I think all board members were quite shocked to find the significant amount of money that had just been shifted out of our Parks and Reserves Fund, bearing in mind that that is a budget that we are always crying out for for more in the annual plan and the long-term plan bids. So I think the other thing that we have discussed in the past is actually having, instead of, you know, the percentage and the amount is actually, we don't know what any of it's being spent on. We just get a lump sum figure that this is what you've got for the year, and we don't actually know what's outstanding, whether we're going to run out of money, and there's things that we've prioritised and that we can see in the annual plan that may not get done. I mean, I'm just really looking ahead to the economic situation. It would be really good to have more detail, I guess, on particularly on those items that we're always banging on about. I don't know any feelings from the board in relation to that. I guess amenity lighting and parks and reserves, town maintenance are the three ones that pop out to me. Just any comments from the board on that aspect of it, really. On page 33, there is a note in relation to the Footpaths Renewal Program being reviewed. It's another thing I have asked for, is whether there is actually a list of renewals for footpaths and whether or not the board could be supplied with that list. If there's no other queries, I'll move on. So Manuela has moved that, Lane seconded. All those in favour?
Can I just ask a question? Sorry,
yes.
I had my hand up. About the footpath. I know this is not part of the footpath matrix that we're working on, but it's been over 6 months that we requested for that small, short footpath in Opua to be done.
Yes.
And I would like to know when it's happening, because we just missed the school holiday window again.
Thank you for that, Manuela. And the priority number one was our Taumata Makuku footpath in Moriwa. And I don't know, Manawai, whether you can update us on that. I certainly haven't had any information to tell us that the job has been done or has commenced. And I haven't been that way for a while. I haven't driven that way for a while. Are you able to update us, Manawai?
Can I just pop in again? You said priority was, sorry, Manawai.
No, you go for it.
Do the Opua one first, and then we'll do the run out settlement. So, yeah. Anyway, update would be great. Go ahead, Manawai. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think that was my understanding too, Manuela. And as far as I know, nothing has happened yet. I've been out a couple of times already to meet our Taumata Makuku community, and also one of our kaimahi, Ken Ross, to look at the playground situation that was mentioned when our community came to the meeting. So when I was there, I hadn't seen any footpath action going down.
Thanks for that, Manawai. I'm not sure whether that's in your field, Elizabeth, but that is actually on State Highway.
Through the chair, Elizabeth has left the meeting just prior to this conversation.
That's fine. Okay. So perhaps we could follow up on that and see where that's at. It has been some months, and it's
I've taken notes on that, and I'll send them through to her.
Thank you. There's another hand up there.
It's Lane.
Lane?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd just like to reinforce Manuela's concern about that footpath at the school at Opua, because it's dragged on, and I know there's politics involved with another organisation, which I, quite frankly, am upset about. I was down in Opua yesterday and watched it, and the reason for not having that footpath, there aren't any valid reasons not to do it. So I would be interested in a report of where it stands.
I think the latest response that Manuela and I got, well, you can speak to this, Manuela.
I think first and foremost, it would be really courtesy of council to let us know who's the new person in charge of footpath. And then we could actually request a reply or a report to tell us what's happening, because as that Elaine just stated, the footpath and Opua has nothing to do with the issues that the school carries out with another organisation.
Yes.
Nothing to do with it. And I would highly welcome for staff to come and meet me in Opua, and I'll show them what we're actually talking about. I really think there's been wires crossed about where the footpaths should be finished, or well, yeah, finished. And anyway, laughing stock. This is a laughing stock work piece that.
Well, it's such a small section, and it's a classic case of over the top, too much collaboration unnecessarily. It's the reverse of what we normally ask for. Rachel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding was the NTA footpath team were supposed to bring the matrix back to the boards this meeting as part of the, Will, and you may have a better recollection than I, when we as council made the redistribution of funds to ensure that we topped up the footpath pool, the point was made that because it was fully unsubsidised, the boards needed the opportunity to review their selection because effectively the goalposts had shifted. We were given assurance that they would come back and do that, and I'm concerned that they're not doing that, well, they haven't done that this meeting, and the end of the financial year is June. I'm not sure what footpath construction looks like, but just flagging that as part of the footpath conversation is that the matrix hasn't even been finalised as of yet. So I don't know if that almost requires an urgent meeting, Madam Chair. I don't know what that looks like.
Through you, Madam Chair, my recollection is the same as Councillor Smith's, I think, and I think her suggested way forward is useful as well. What we'll do is we'll take a note of that, and we'll make sure that Andy and the appropriate staff give you the briefing that you need, because clearly there's something missing here, and I'm really struck by a lack of a common sense approach to try and solve what Manuel has really well described here as something which needs to be done and is pretty straightforward. It should be pretty straightforward.
Thanks, Will, and appreciate your comments. I think the simplistic job got caught up in a change of staff and quite a bit of misunderstanding. But yes, we redid our footpath lists last year and spent a lot of time on it and put a lot of work into it. And it's a living document. We're constantly adding footpaths to it. I think we have to live to be about 500 to complete them. But to have the new matrix would be helpful. And I also have an RFS in for the roading matrix, which I haven't received. I didn't think it would be a difficult document for staff to source and forward to me. But also board members are fielding questions and queries and complaints in relation to roading, and the matrix is a really, really informative, helpful document for us to be able to put in front of people and say, look, this is how it works. This is why you're number 10 on the list and not number 1. And it's really, I mean, it's a lot of work goes into those matrix, and although they are forever changing, it's helpful for us as members to be able to have those to explain to the general public, how systems work and why footpaths and roads aren't getting done when they want them to be done, and why they go from number 3 on the list down to number 20 all of a sudden. That's another thing that is a real controversial thing at community flax roots level. Manawai.
Kia ora. Just want to support what everyone said, and also just to say, when we as a board can't get these small things done, it's demoralising for us as board members, and not only for our community, but it kind of devalues the utility of our roles. It's a branding issue because it's a small thing that we spend years trying to resolve, and it makes it challenging for us to appreciate the other things that we do and our staff do, because these little things, while seemingly small things, can't get done. So I would love, just from trying to look at neutrally if we can, I would love not to have this on our agenda anymore. It just keeps coming back, and that places a burden on us that it never goes away, and that it weighs down on the work that we do, because while we might be streets ahead in some things, it's the devil's in the details. So whatever can be done to get this off our agenda and to make sure that our opua whānau feel like council and our community board are listening, I would really appreciate that. Awhi, Manuela, if you want awhi at any of these meetings that you might have on-site visits, please let me know. I'll come on over. Kia ora.
Thanks, Manawai. I think we could all probably come on over for that tiny wee strip of footpath and do it ourselves, actually. Any more discussion around?
Anyway.
Any more discussion around this? I'm going to put this moved. Manuela seconded. Lane. I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
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 Aye, Paiana.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll move on to item 7.4. The Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board note the project reports received from A. Jackman Entertainment, Hullabaloo Outreach and Totra North, B. Paihia Red Cross, and C. Tauai Makers Market. Do I have a seconder?
Yes. Bruce.
Bruce, thank you.
I'm still here. No, I don't.
The additional information is also Jackman Entertainment is on page 1 of your additional information. I have a comment from Dave Hukwaikopa, who couldn't be here today, just in relation to the bottled water issue surrounding that event. And we do have the financials and the photos here. He just wanted to express his disappointment in the fact that the report simply added a sentence to it on page 37. In that box, you will see at the bottom it was added, as per request from Community Board, we ensured free water and drinking cups were available. I also felt that was a bit disappointing because it didn't show anywhere in the financials where the water was actually listed as a purchase. And Catherine, it has been asked that you actually that where we request these things, that we have evidence of the fact that of how it was supplied, whether it was the town supply tank water, whether it was potable, whether it was bottled. I do see on page 11 of the additional that Anika Moa had a bottle of water under her microphone on the floor, or her amplifier, but that's the only evidence I could find of a bottle of water. Might sound petty, but it's taken us months to get this additional information, and it's not really seen by members as adequate.
Well, through the chair, I actually saw Jackie yesterday and was talking to her about it. And she said that it was just the water that was available on site, the potable water from the kitchen there. They didn't purchase water specifically for it. She also said that she noted that a lot of people actually brought their own water bottles. So that's partly why they weren't using as much. So most people, the kids were coming in with their own water bottles that they brought from home. That's what Jackie said to me yesterday anyway.
Well, thank you for that, Catherine. And that's interesting to note, because perhaps from a board perspective, we need to take note of that perhaps we should be supplying, the supply should be to refill the water bottles if people are bringing their own, that we have a refillable station there or something rather, in lieu of using what could be sitting stagnant tank water. And we're not really sure with regard that hall at Totra North whether or not that, you know, how potable that water is. So yes, we could put it in our strategic priorities as suggested. Manawai, thank you. Any more comments in relation to that particular report, Lane?
Bruce, actually.
Bruce?
No, I was there, and yes, she's dead right. There were people, most of the people did take a little bottle of water. There were a lot of parents there, obviously, with all the children, and
Yes.
they were catering for their own kids. So I did see that myself. And yes, the water at the hall probably could be a little bit suspect, perhaps, especially tank water.
Yes.
But, you know, they've been drinking it forever. They haven't died yet. So
And I guess the other issue, Bruce, around that is that water is like gold to that community. So whether that's something we need to take into account as well. I'm just reading some things in the chat here, sorry. Like the one that Healthy Family showed us. How could the community board purchase one of those? Yes, do you recall that? Was a little trailer wagon of water that was refillable, and yeah, that, I mean, if council owned one of those to go around the communities for events, that would be absolutely amazing, so that people could get their own capture their own water or refill their bottles would be great. Any other questions on that one? Okay, so moving on to the second one, which was the I think in here it's the Red Cross. Any questions around that? No. And the Towai Makers Market, the additional information is on page 27. The only comment that Dave had around that in his absence was in relation to the acknowledgement on the signage at the market. He's been past it but couldn't read it as to whether the community board was acknowledged. But if you look on page 32 of the additional information, you will see there's clearly a Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board logo as well as council logo. Perhaps anyone who's at the Makers Market next time could check that out on his behalf. Just something, Catherine, that Dave also wanted followed up on in relation to ongoing requests from the community board, that be something that perhaps is put in as a standard, which I'm sure you do request that we are acknowledged.
Through the chair, absolutely. It is a requirement, and they sign a letter acknowledging they will do that. And when they are sent out the purchase order number so they can uplift the funding, they are also sent a JPEG of the board's logo so that they have that to use.
Thanks, Catherine. Anything else around those application? No, sorry, those funding reports, projects. Okay, we'll put this to the vote. Moved myself, seconded by Bruce. I'm a yes.
I'm a yes. Wayne?
Yes, thank you.
Frank's a yes.
Yes.
Aye, Paiana.
So that's carried. Malema, are you all right to move on?
I am. Apologies, Chair.
That's all right, thank you. Item 8.1, Community and Customer Services Activities, our 6 monthly report. That the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board received the report, Community and Customer Services Activities, 6 monthly report. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Thank you, Frank. Seconder?
I'll second.
Lane?
Yep.
Any discussion or questions around the reporting? No hands up?
I have a comment to make, but after everybody's questions.
Yeah, sure. I think I've raised this in the past, but on page 55, under our events on council reserves and other managed spaces, where is the community board involvement in that process? How are we advised or included in the comments of the applications? Because to my knowledge, these events people apply directly to council staff, and it is booked and organised through the council staff in most instances. So, Manuela.
I have that issue almost bi-monthly with the Russell Village Green, especially now in COVID times that people can't use the hall that's next to it. And people ring me and say, where can I book it? And there's online you find where you can book it, but then you never know what's happening, and it's still in our delegation as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not that we want to stop things to happen, but it's just the same thing again. It's communications. It's what you know, gives you power to actually tell people this is what's happening. So yeah, it would be good to have that communication for the one person. I know it's just the one person that takes these bookings, and I can imagine it'd be fairly simple to just copy the community board members into the reply to the organisers that want to hold events on these places.
Yes, I for myself, and perhaps it's you and I, because we have the most, I guess, the busiest visitor kind of areas, although Kirikiri Domain will fall into this once it's completed as well, is that how are we included, advised, or are we invited to comment? We may have information that is important to council staff, again, following on from our discussion we had this morning. That could be helpful to council, and we might know, for example, that the ground is soft and muddy and actually shouldn't be used, it should be rested or something like that, simple things, not necessarily, or if there was going to be a wedding going on there, I mean, there could be things outside the boundaries of that reserve or managed space that and I know I'm not sure whether or not the policy has addressed buskers and things like that yet. I think they are working on that at council, on the open spaces, but particularly in relation to events, I think.
I also think liquor problems as well, and rubbish. I mean, it will just help staff with their workload if they can just come to us and say, oh, can you just give me the heads up, if this event happens, what do you think the implications are? I can tell you on the phone within 30 seconds most of the time, and it's done. And exactly. Most of the time we probably won't even miss things, that could hold up. We had the classic issue New Year's Eve in Russell, where one of the most popular establishments, they think, closed the road for their celebrations, and nobody knew. And it was a great upset, because New Year's Eve is where people want to go and celebrate outside, and the road was shut.
Yes, people perhaps taking the law into their own hands or dealing direct with council.
That doesn't matter, but no, council apparently gave the permission, but I didn't know, and I had people calling me on New Year's Eve at 8, 9 o'clock, saying, hey, what's happening down here? I said, I don't know, I'm not there. And you look stupid as a community board, that you don't know. Why don't you know? Little things again. So I think it would be a good thing if we would be involved in these decisions for the open spaces.
Totally agree, even if we're advised or included in some way. Will, would you like to respond to that?
If I could, Madam Chair, it's been really useful for me sitting in on this, and there's a sort of a consistent theme emerging, and it's been very well articulated by both Manuela and by Manawai, and that is that as elected representatives, that all the good work that you do can be undermined by simple little things where you should be in the know and you're not in the know. And this is perhaps the biggest lesson that I've picked up from this morning. And I am looking at how we can better support. One of the reasons why I'm sitting in today, I want to find out how can we better support you in doing to be honest, the marvelous job that you that you do. And clearly, we're not giving you as much support as we could do. But on this specific issue, again, we've got a note of that, and Dolly will speak to Dr. Dean about how we can better keep you informed. And as you say, Madam Chair, the local knowledge which you have on the ground can actually assist the council in advising the applicant one way or the other.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Thanks, Will. Thanks for that. And we really appreciate you sitting in today. It's great. The only other query I had was on page 47 around the increase over that September, November, December period. Requests for service were quite high, and given the history and the reports and the customer satisfaction, it appears that those levels are coming down. And we're in COVID period for those last two, 2020 through to now. And it would just be interesting to know what areas the request for service, whether there was a common denominator there, because we are all experiencing, or several of us are experiencing, complaints about noise on the increase, and that could be as COVID related, as people's activities have changed. We're not living the same way we were 2 or 3 years ago. So it would just be really interesting to know if there was a breakdown there as to why those remained higher. Would have expected to see some drop off in requests for service over that period in line with October. That would probably be my only criticism of the graphs. Any other questions or queries about them? No?
Madam Chair, if no one else has got any questions, I'll jump in.
Yes.
I just want to refer to page 56 in the housing for the elderly kōrero.
Yes.
In the last paragraph. I just want to say that every time this table comes up and we see a vacancy, it's not often stated what's happening with the vacancy. So after commenting on that over all of these years, I'm grateful to see that it's been explained. One sentence has been added that they remain vacant while undergoing refurbishment. So I think that's progress, whānau. I just wanted to acknowledge that. And to go back to page 53, the final paragraph under the Bay of Islands eyesight, I just wanted to celebrate the author and the authoriser of the report for giving us the opportunity to feel some gratitude towards the police and the Te Tai Tokerau border control by adding it into the kōrero here. I'm mindful of just the absolute hard round-the-clock work they've been doing to keep our community safe, and it's awesome to see that the kōrero acknowledges that in keeping our whānau safe, they've created inspired questions and invigorated new conversations amongst our visitors to be more mindful maybe about them coming in. So I just wanted to thank our report author and authorisers for allowing that opportunity, and actually just do a big shout out to the police and the Te Tai Tokerau Border Control for Ngāti Wai Trust Board has been doing the pōwhiri for each group of police that have been coming down or up to Awhi over the last 6 months, and it's just been successive pōwhiri, which is a lot to host, but just a real acknowledgement to our police whānau coming from Tamaki to help and around the country, that they are being so respectful and acknowledging the importance of tangata whenua, and that they're visitors too coming in to help us in this COVID time. So ngā mihi kia koutou, kia tātou katoa. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora manawai for that. And yes, an acknowledgement of our eyesights, definitely eyesights in libraries. In fact, our district facilities have really stepped up here, Will. They've been amazing. Those of us that do touch base with our service centres and district facilities in our areas on a regular basis, they've kept upbeat in really down times and are doing a fabulous job in the community. Any more questions, queries, comments? Right, we'll move on then. So that's moved by Frank, seconded by Lane. I'll put that, I'm a yes.
I'm a yes. Yes.
Yes, yes.
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 Thank you, that's carried. Thank you. So moving on, we are down to item 8.2. Recommendation that the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board receive the report for the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board Action Sheet Update, February 2022. Do I have a mover?
Manuela.
Thank you. Seconder?
Frank.
Thank you, Frank. I'd just like to compliment you, Melina, on jumping in to cover us in your new role here with us, and the updates that you've given through January since you've come back to work on each of these has been great. We've got the first one there is in progress with Rachel's committee. The Moreton Bay FIG, you see an update there Manuela, on the 18th of January.
Yeah.
Then we get down to the next item. At the bottom of that is the proposed resolution for the placemaking kaupapa on the Russell waterfront. So Marlena, do you have Manuela's resolution to put up there?
I have it on screen right now, Madam Chair.
So Manuela has put a resolution to move forward the placemaking project in on the Strand and the Russell waterfront. That was agreed to as per D in the action report in front of you on page 61. And that reads that as a result of the community consultation thus far, the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board approved the cost of procurement up to $15,000 for concept drawings for the Strand Russell from the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board placemaking funds. So,
with your permission, Madam Chair, Catherine Trewin is also available to speak on this.
Okay, so Manuela's moved that. Do I have a seconder?
Lane.
Thank you, Lane. Manuela, you may wish to speak to this first. Obviously, there would be more than one drawing. So this is to enable Manuela to move ahead with the community and get concept drawings, be it 1, 2 or 3, well, more than one, it would be 2 or 3, to bring back to the community. Would you like to speak to this, Manuela?
Yes, I had great conversations with Belinda over this placemaking for the Strand in Russell, and Belinda's been really supportive trying to find solutions, especially with all the lockdowns and restrictions we had. It's really hard to hold a community meeting where people can throw ideas around. So we're taking the approach of doing it online via email, and had some great response back, some really cool ideas. And one person actually did some drawings herself and put them back in. And I was hoping that the money we are proposing that I'm proposing at the moment for these concept drawings is way too much money, and we can do it at a lesser cost by having the creative people of Russell involved in this and seeing how things could look at the waterfront, especially with all these different bylaws we have that clashing on that piece of road. And yeah, so yeah, I was hoping that we can move forward now instead of dragging it out and get some things that the community actually can see what we're thinking. And especially with on Saturday morning we have a dawn service for the beautiful carving that's going to get unveiled at the Russell Wharf. So I think that will be a great starting point for people to see that the Russell foreshore can be something much better than it is at the moment.
Thanks, Manuela. And yes, that Waharoa that we also were involved in the process of, or included in the process of that, I should say, looks fabulous. For those of you that haven't seen it, it really is. You know you've arrived somewhere now when you hop on that boat and go to Russell and walk down the wharf. It's going to really be the as Manuela said, it's going to be like the anchor point for the start of the placemaking kaupapa in Russell, which is really exciting. There has been quite a bit of feedback, I think 50 something in total, wasn't it? Comments and input, and was great. So really the next step for Manuela within the community now is to allow council, to invite council, instruct council to start the procurement phase so that it will enable Manuela to identify several people in the community that she can recommend or put in contact with council to get some quotes together so that they can be paid out of our placemaking fund via the staff. Will, I see you on screen there. Did you want to talk to this?
Hang on. Excuse me, Madam Chair, it was on a more general issue about action sheets, but I could come back to that at the end if I could, please.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
So,
can I share my screen briefly? Is that possible, or can I not do that? Is that not my permission?
You may. You can do that.
Yes.
Can I? I'll try to find out where I do that. And yeah, you keep talking.
Okay, there's hands up there. I'm not sure whose they are.
Rachel.
Rachel.
Jeepers, I nearly clicked the leave button instead of the unmute button. Mouse is rogue today. Just quickly while Manuel is sharing her screen, this is awesome to have some kind of process that's supported by the organisation to enable that. A real pedantic process question around the resolution, and I can't see it in front of me. But Manuela, I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to pinpoint that they work either with yourself, or if you want to be broader, the Russell Community Board representative as part of that process, just to really cement that it's a community board-led process. And I may be overthinking it. It's just I know that this is a really new way of doing things with the placemaking fund, and I think it's important that the board make it really clear that this is in partnership with the board. It's not a council activity, it's a board activity. Just some food for thought anyway.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful that it comes from, can you see this now?
Yeah, thanks, Rachel, for that. My sentiments around that is that in our original resolution, it notes that the community board members engage. So although Manuela will be driving this because it's in her subdivision area, if there were issues or she wanted to delegate it or involve any other board members or needed support, I see that we would all be there for her. But it is a given by staff that it's in her area, and so far she has been engaging with people in the community who are facilitating and will continue to do so. So I don't see that as a necessity unless you would like it added, Manuela.
No. I really, the way I see my role in the community is in the background, and the community is leading with everything. That we just guidance if they need it. And I mean, look at, can you see the screen that I'm sharing or not?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this has just come up was the short notice that didn't even come from me, and that might have been a bit of a faux pas. Went out to the community from somebody who said they're going to take it on to consult with the community, and this came back and nobody even knew it was a council thing, you know, a community board thing, and people are keen. And why push yourself onto them if they can do it themselves? That's how I feel, but maybe the process requests something else, so I don't know.
No, you're quite correct. It's community driven, and it won't survive unless it is. The people have to be enthused and want to make it. Placemaking only works if the people and the volunteers in the community want to make it happen. And that way they get what they want and they have the involvement, they're passionate about it. It's fabulous. And to get that many comments back from a small community, particularly when you know, there are a lot of people are stuck overseas or stuck here in difficult times, it's great. Well, that was well done. So we need to keep the momentum going and hope those volunteers don't lose enthusiasm.
Yeah.
There's another hand up. David Clendon, is it yours?
Yes, I just want to talk about the Parr Road petition. We may not quite be there yet.
Yep, coming to that. Okay, so we've got Manuela's resolution, seconded by Lane. If there's no more discussion around moving this forward, and obviously any monies that are unspent will go back into the placemaking fund or stay in the placemaking fund. This is just to enable the process to get kick-started and to hopefully save having to come back and ask for another $1,000 or $2,000. It's better to have a reasonable amount in there, bearing in mind we would want to see more than one plan submitted. So I'm going to put this to the vote. Oh, David, no, you're still up. Parr Road, okay. So I'm a yes.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. Yes.
Right, Payana.
Thank you. So that's carried.
Ooh, thank you.
Now the next one is Power Road petition. We have an update there from the 24th of January. We don't have we got Elizabeth there? She's gone.
She has left the meeting, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we haven't received a copy, as you'll see on page, whatever it is, I can't see my page, number 62, that a copy of the document and the findings audit can be shared with the community board. It says action complete. The action's not complete. It hasn't been shared with the community board. So I'd like to request a copy of the document to be included in our March community board agenda, please, Malema.
We can make that happen, no problem.
Thank you. And I now go to David Clendon.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. That was my point. Yeah, 20th of last month, we were told it can be shared. I'm surprised it wasn't on the table for today. It's something that was quite important to the people in Power Road. They did come make a delegation. This is back in September last year. We're now into February and we're told we can set a report in March, which would be 6 months after those people who are genuinely concerned about their own safety and the pedestrian safety implications. And 6 months later, we'll get a look at this. I think it's taken too long, frankly, and I'm very surprised this report, we're told it can be tabled, but it hasn't been. So what's the breakdown there? It's quite disappointing.
Thank you. Malema's got her hand up to reply.
Through the chair, Elizabeth has sent me an email and she states the NTA is finalising the independent road safety audit for Power Road Footpath and will compile the findings for the next community board meeting.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Another hand up there.
Sorry, Belinda, not to sort of labour the point, but the update we're given is that the document is complete and has been signed off by all parties. But now we're given to understand it actually hasn't been finalised. Is that what we heard from Melanie?
Yes. Yeah, maybe there's two separate documents. This is the independent road safety report that we requested from the board perspective. So perhaps there are two separate documents there. The post-construction road safety audit has been, well, no, it says it's been completed.
I will follow up for you.
Thanks, Marlena. We just need to remove action complete because it's not complete until we receive it and make it public information, seeing as we did have a number of people come and speak to us. I think they did a deputation and public forum. Thank you.
Madam Chair, in the interest of time, I'll take my hand down, but the same points.
Okay, thank you. So the next one, tree request removal, updated 19th of January. Thank you, Malema. Still awaiting surveyor's report on that. So then we're through to page 66, which is the permit to occupy plantation reserve. Manuela, you'll see there's been a bit of movement on that with site visits and things, and updates will be ongoing. So we look forward to being involved in that process. Bearing in mind another neighbour has now come forward who is also wanting to formalise their encroachments. We're going to need fat budgets for encroachments, aren't we? When it comes to surveying and legal and signage and delineating and fencing and planting. Got our work cut out just to reclaim back what's ours and as far as reserves are concerned, and to actually give public their rightful access and use of open space, public open space. So that's a whole separate thing. I have been banging on about that one at LTP and annual plan level in the OPEX workshops, trying to get more budgets, but I'm not sure whether it's falling on deaf ears, but I see it. We've got a number of issues, serious ones. You'll see one come to our meeting next month for Whangaroa Road, and they're getting very timely, very costly, and we do need to take action. The longer we leave these things, the harder it is to resolve them. And with the pressure on people being in lockdown and confined to their backyards, it's actually magnified the issue right across our area. And we've got a lot of issues of encroachment, huge amounts. So we look forward to those updates being ongoing on that particular one at Te Waihapu Road. Right, so the Cherry Park House, the report is attached. Did you want to have a quick word on this one, Frank?
Is the only comment I would make, Belinda, or two comments. One, I just want to compliment the staff on the way in which they've handled that report, the timely way they responded, the comprehensive way they've responded. The second point, there is a issue to be determined, and that is whether council leases Cherry Park House to the committee or whether we make it a hall. It is the unanimous view of the management committee that they do not want a lease. I actually don't think a lease would be possible anyway, because the Cherry Park House Committee is not an incorporated society. So the view is that if Cherry Park House could be bought under the halls policy, everybody would be happy. In terms of the content of the report, we've met with council staff there. There's no question in my mind that they now have got the message that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm very confident that we'll see some progress on this. But apart from that, no further comment.
Yes, it's an excellent report. And as I said earlier, Frank, thank you very much for your numerous meetings and time out taken to address this long-standing issue. It really did need resolving, and it highlighted the value of having Kirsty Farrow in the room for our community board meeting.
Yeah.
As part of asset management. Finally, there's this fabulous report that has been done, and I've no doubt the building warrant of fitness will go ahead and be dealt with, and we look forward to the ongoing issues with that. Okay, with that in mind, the only other thing I would like to go back and address, any questions on the Cherry Park House for Frank while he's here? No? Thank you. I'll move on then to the final thing I would like to address is back to our original presenters, the deputation at the beginning of our meeting in relation to the Rainbow Rangatahi. I would like to consider, or for the board to consider moving or a resolution to support in principle the kaupapa of placemaking on rainbow crossings, benches, partnershiping with schools and footpaths.
Are you looking for a seconder, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, if I may,
yes.
I'll place some wording on the screen for you to look at, and we can amend and adjust as you wish.
Thank you. Just discussion around it and whether everybody is happy to move in principle. Obviously, if they're going to rush off and spend money, we would have to look seriously at funding retrospectively. But if they get a model together and come back to the board with their Rachel, there's one or two people that have been working closely with them. Dave, I think, has been involved too. If they can come back with comprehensive placemaking criteria to the board, and the board's in agreement. Everybody sounded very positive this morning. If the board was in agreement, I'm sure, depending on costings, we could look at funding that, bearing in mind that we do have the Strand project in Russell as our main focus at the moment in relation to our placemaking budget in this financial year. Frank, your hand is up.
I was just thinking, Belinda, obviously there's a timing issue here. Could this not be something that we could deal with by email as a board, with the view of having reached agreement, exchanging emails, and then confirm it at the next meeting. It wouldn't be it would be sort of retrospective, but the board would have all had their input to the decision, and we then formalise the decision at the next meeting.
Thanks, Frank. Yes, I would have to check on that. My thinking is that we would probably have to have a formal resolution. It would have to go through the correct process because we're dealing with public money. It's not ours just to go out and spend as we see fit, like we think we can. We think it's in our back pocket and we can just go spend it. So yes, to a degree we can, but to fund that retrospectively, I think it would set a precedence, which I'm not sure I would be too comfortable with. But definitely, if they are commencing something, but they have a bigger kaupapa in mind and are going to be rolling it out and spending more money, until we see locations, designs, volunteers, I would like to. I'm sure they can pull it together. They seem a group of really enthusiastic, passionate people about making change and making a difference and being inclusive. And I think that from a board perspective, they would have 110% support from us, is my feeling. But until such time as they actually get some costings and things, there's no reason why they can't start doing what they're doing. If they've got an approved site to work on and they've done everything themselves, there's no reason why we can't. Rachel, you want to add to that?
Yeah, maybe just to stick a little bit of detail in it. I know that Frank and Lane both have to leave, but I think, so I just want to acknowledge Elizabeth from NTA has been phenomenal in terms of providing some really doable technical advice in terms of the rainbow crossing. The reality is we would have loved to have been able to, or the group would have loved to have been able to deliver a rainbow crossing in Pride Month, which is now, but I think it's really important that a clear process, especially from a placemaking point of view, from an FNDC point of view, is followed as well. At the moment, the stance is sort of with any placemaking thing, follow the safety requirements and you can get out there and paint it yourself. I have some concerns around the ongoing maintenance of that, and I know that the board would share those concerns as well. So I'm really keen to use this as an opportunity to make sure that we get a process in place for when community want to achieve this sort of outcome. I think on the back of Innovating Streets, we will have more and more of these conversations. So Cheryl Gavin, I know, was having a look at how this could be done as well. In terms of the park benches, the volunteer hour, the manpower is there. They've got the paint. I walked around town with B and one of our volunteers last week and talked about the safe spaces where he feels safe in CBD at the moment. It was important that the focus was on the safety side of things. And he identified 3 park benches. One was outside the library next to the CAB, which is the bus stop park bench. And he said he uses the library a lot. One was outside the sound lounge. And we spoke to the guy in the sound lounge and they were really, really supportive of it. And then one we identified was actually outside FNDC offices. I'd be happy to send an image round, but for those Kirikiri representatives especially, I know that Rotary have painted some park benches in the past. I don't know what that process was that was followed. I don't remember anything ever coming to the board. The group are ready and willing to get out and paint, even if it's just one park bench to start with. But we're not sure what the process is with that. There's an art in public places policy online, but there's no form that goes with that. So the group aren't sure of what the requirements are or how that needs to be done. And I think just in terms of acknowledging that Pride Month is right now, and it's really unfortunate, one of our volunteers who, our artist volunteer, she has tested positive for COVID and she is in isolation with her whānau at the moment, which is why everything's kind of been put on hold. But I think from a board perspective, the more enabling, I don't know what the board's expectations are around a community group painting a park bench, but it would be great to get a little bit of definition around that so that if and when the community group are ready, they can just get out and do it. And then in terms of the footpath decals, those are simply just, I don't know if anybody's seen the vaccination stickers that have been put on the footpaths around our towns, but they're simply like stickers, like the 2 metre distancing stickers. And they were really just a conversation starter as opposed to being so in your face. It's just a couple of decals on footpaths to say, you know, we have an aspiration to be an inclusive community. We see our rainbow community, we recognise them within the community. So that's a pretty straightforward one in terms of just getting some printed and putting them on the footpath. But again, that could be something that the board would like to deal with later. I hope that helps. I think the park benches are probably the biggest focus, and it's not a money thing, it's a how can they get out and do it thing.
Thanks for that, Rachel. And yes, usually in the past with Rotary over the years and Lions, they have come to the community board and or been referred to us through council to request placement and location, and that has come to the board because, just like we were talking about before, sometimes they are put in areas where we know they are not very practical. It might be the desired location, but it might be that that's where the guy with the service truck services that lane, walks down there every day with, you know, big trolleys or boxes or whatever. So there is a process with regards to street furniture. Likewise with rubbish tins is another thing that we can do artwork on, which is these are things that I think we have to look at also when we are placemaking. Look at our existing street furniture and see what needs upgrading, and perhaps target those as placemaking projects as well. Bearing in mind, council will always be looking at the ongoing maintenance of anything new, the cost of additional and also upkeep. I've got some hands up here. I've got Manawai, then Frank.
Can I
Kia ora, oh, sorry. You go, Frank.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Can I just say I'm sorry I have to leave the meeting. Thank you very much for the way you've chaired the meeting, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Frank, and thanks for your input. See you. Manawai.
Yep, kia ora. I'm mindful it's really a timing issue. Our board has expressed our aroha towards this little poo and B and any other young person or person in our community who might be feeling unsafe. So I know that's there. It is a timing issue. I think we can do some things today if it's in our strategic priorities. Now, I know that in terms of us supporting Taitamariki and Rangatahi, that was in our old strategic plan. So there would have been a space for us, I think, to make a motion in principle, but I don't know if it's in our current strategic priorities, and that's where I'd seek advice from you, Catherine. Maybe you might be able to add something in here. Otherwise, I'm not too sure we could or should make that motion, other than just to say we love them and look forward to putting a process in place for them to access funding. And even if we aren't able to support them immediately, I know that our board will look to support them in the future, and that might give us some chance to motivate more social change, which is the real stuff around this, and invite more partners into the space who could really make that a permanent shift. And I'm mindful that say we did something today that gave them access to funding, other community groups may see that and may not find it all that welcoming and it might create some friction for their kaupapa moving forward potentially. So I just want to emphasise the need for kaitiakitanga in this space to protect their kaupapa and also our communities around. Kia ora.
Thanks, Manawai. Lane, is it or Bruce?
It's both, Madam Chairman. My apologies. I do have to exit stage left, and my technically challenged friend is going to exit with me.
Okay, so bearing that in mind, I was going to put a resolution to support in principle the placemaking projects, Rainbow Crossings benches, the partnering with schools and footpaths.
I'm still quite happy to second it, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
And I'm quite happy to vote in the affirmative.
And I will
So
vote.
I will move that, and
Bruce will also vote for it.
Apologies, Madam Chair. Could you give me that resolution one more time, please?
That the board, following the deputation this morning from Rainbow Rangatahi, that the board support in principle the proposed placemaking projects.
One moment, please. Oops.
Catherine, is this in our strategic priorities, just to check, around our supporting rangatahi projects?
Not specifically.
It is in
and
our strategic plan.
I don't actually have a copy of your strategic plan. I'm still waiting on that. So I can't be specific because I don't know for certain. Rachel, can I just clarify? Did you say they already had all the paint and the volunteers and everything?
For the park benches, yes.
Okay, so they would.
It's simply just I guess a permission thing.
Yeah, so if you're supporting that in principle as a board, then that would be a discussion that would be taking place with I would say probably the facilities team for the permissions there. That wouldn't necessarily require funding from us. If they're requiring specific funding, then technically we really want an application from them so we know exactly where that money's going.
Through the chair,
Shall we
Cheryl
split
Gibbon has her hand up as well.
Yeah. Should write that into the motion.
Kia ora,
Hi,
everyone.
Cheryl. Didn't see you there.
Hey. Yeah, sorry, I had to dip out before because I got asked. I got called away for a while, so I missed some of the excitement. Manuai, to answer your question, your strategic priorities, yes, we can certainly add that into it. As far as I'm aware, we've had that little bit of a crossover with Casey leaving us for another role. So we still need to form up your strategic priorities, so we can certainly add that in. So that's not an issue. As far as this funding is concerned, I'd be interested to know how much you think is going to be needed, because we could possibly look at other, it doesn't have to be funded by the community board. If they're looking
Cheryl,
for $100,000, we can probably find that.
the other thing that I do bear in mind is that we do have the Town Beautification Fund as well,
yes,
which could fall under this. So we have a number of avenues to fund it, but I think I could be wrong, but from what Rachel has passed on to me, I feel that this is a community inclusive project, that they're reaching out to actually make this a placemaking project, and I think that would be the way to go to make it a statement that we're all in this together. We are. It's easy to pluck the funds, and I appreciate that, but it's not easy to pluck it. We're always easy to pluck it, I should say. Not easy to pluck the funds, but for a small amount of money for a placemaking project, when we have people enthusiastic as volunteers in the community, that is what placemaking's about.
Yes, exactly.
So my view on that is that it is definitely a placemaking project. They've approached us. They're keen. They want to do it. They're going to put in the mahi, and they have volunteers, and we really just are looking at a design and principle, to do it.
Yes, that's right. So if you pass your resolution to agree in principle, then we just follow it through with whatever's required to make it happen after that. Okay, cool.
Oh, Aroha through the chair. Oh, sorry.
Yes, Manuai, go on.
Cheryl, what was that number you just said a little bit low? I didn't hear that. If we can find 2,000. Oh yeah, just checking.
$1,000. I mean, so my point is that once we get the permission to do this,
yes,
the money is not. I mean, we all know how much it costs to paint something. I don't see it as being particularly onerous to work out how we fund it.
No.
Yeah. It's just the process. No one understands the process.
Yeah, the funding will come down to, in my view, to perhaps additional park benches, or other things other than existing infrastructure, like if the footpath's there. One of the things that did crop up with the placemaking in my area in the past was from a community board perspective. It was interesting that it was viewed that I should perhaps not be seen to be involved in defacing council assets. So it's not always a great thing for you to pick up that paintbrush and get involved, but I think we need to break those barriers down somehow.
I think that what you're doing here is celebrating Pride Month. So the timing of it is really important to do something in February.
Within the February.
So if you include that in your resolution, that it's tied to the fact that it is Pride Month and that on this occasion you would like to celebrate that.
Sure.
And we just make it happen through that avenue, if you get what I mean. I do,
but I can see this as perhaps being bigger than a little job. I think it could be, you know, if Kitty's going to take this and run with this as a community, then that can be rolled out into other communities and eventually across the district. So, you know, this is how placemaking works. If you've got that model, isn't it? You know, why reinvent the wheel? Roll it out and make a success of it. So, thank you. So, Rachel, you want to further comment on that?
Yeah, I guess just my thinking is still very outcome based. So I guess the question to the board, and it's a bit tricky because there's only 3 of you left, is if the group were to go and paint a park bench tomorrow, would that be an issue with the board in terms of an outcome? You know, like that's the only perceived barrier at the moment. Because to your point, Belinda, you know, I don't want to be part of defacing council property, but you know, where is that line between defacing and placemaking, you know, and how do we be as enabling as possible? Because I mean, in this COVID environment, unfortunately, we're just not going to get a rainbow crossing on a road in February. It's just not a thing. Aside from how supportive Elizabeth has been, there's still a lot of process there, and the biggest cost will be the traffic management side of things. It won't actually be the paint or the manpower, it'll be the closing of the road. But in terms of, you know, eating the elephant bite by bite, if the community group were to go out there and say, hey, go out there tomorrow and paint a bench, would that be an issue? I guess is my question, and I haven't been able to find somebody to answer that for me at a council organisation level. So that's the question to the board.
So Rachel, that sits with Dean and District Facilities approval for existing infrastructure. We don't own, the community board doesn't own those park benches. So if they want to go and paint that tomorrow, and we're more than happy for them to do that, I would suggest that requires approval. Would you agree with that, Cheryl?
Yes, I don't know that anyone has asked the District Facilities team their perspective on it. So let's just ask them that question. I can't. It would be just a matter of getting permission from not Dean, but Andy's team.
Andy's, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the board, can we bring back up that, Manawai?
Oh, just, if we could add that as a separate item onto the motion, maybe.
Yes.
So that's something we can do immediately, But I am mindful of Rachel's comment, you know, as per standing orders, how are we sitting in terms of making a motion, Whānau, since over half of our members are not present?
Yeah, we're not. They've given their approval in principle. So that's all we can do is put that through.
I'm all for this kaupapa, by the way.
Yes,
I'm totally keen. So
prior to Lane and Bruce's departure, they supported it. The only thing we would be adding is to celebrate, acknowledging that we would be assisting them in celebrating Pride, February as Pride Month. Is that correct? Can we bring up what you had there? I know we don't have a quorum anymore.
Madam
Through the
Chair,
chair,
if I
we're having.
can
Sorry. Go.
Thanks, Dolly. If I can just pitch in, so if the meeting does not have a quorum, which I don't know that you currently do,
No.
then you need to actually adjourn the meeting and reconvene once you have a quorum.
Ka pai.
Thank you.
Aisha, do I still count as quorum though?
You do, yes. So
we've
then you
restricted
would have a
four
quorum?
members. So it's at the chair's discretion because we do have a quorum. Even though I don't vote, I'm still a member.
Well, then that answers that question. Let's go for broke, whānau. Let's do this. Ngā mihi, that was proper due diligence there.
I
Let's
think
get this done.
if we wind this back, we will see that Lane and Bruce totally supported the resolution of supporting.
We can
it in
note
principle,
that
even
they
we
aren't
can
here.
note that in their absence. It is a tricky one. It's we could have dealt with it at the beginning of the meeting when the people were here, but unfortunately we have a member away and others that had to go on to other meetings. So
through the chair.
It does put us in a difficult position, Malema, to actually move a resolution because we can't.
Because they departed the meeting and the conversation continued, so they weren't party to that
No,
part of the discussion.
Correct.
Also, the conversation evolved into adding additional things into the resolution, so we're still trying to craft the resolution around that discussion.
Yes.
You'll just bear with us a moment.
Madam Chair, would that involve us also updating them via email or something? Would we add that as a note or a?
I think we
moving
could
forward?
Probably deal with this in through our action sheet reports. I would need some guidance from Aisha on that.
So, Madam Chair, I thought I'd just pitch in. I'd see Therese is still currently in the meeting, so if you had some questions, she might be able to unmute and provide some answers. I also just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Smith has her hand raised, but I think, and hopefully Cheryl will agree, that we kind of understand the gist of what you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
I think to ensure that we're navigating some of those tricky scenarios, it might be beneficial for us as staff to take a 5-minute pause, or for you to have a lunch break, and then we could bring you back what we think might be a well-crafted motion for you to move, just so that we can ensure that it's going to navigate those kind of tricky situations.
Yes,
in the background.
unless we put it through as a note following the deputation. It is a little bit tricky for us to navigate. I'm bearing in mind we're at the end of our agenda and I was going to close the meeting. So I'm in your hands. Is everyone happy to take a 5-minute break?
I'm happy to adjourn for 5 minutes.
Yep, 5 minutes.
Manuela?
You happy with 5 minutes? Will that suffice,
Yes,
Marlene or
yes.
Aisha?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll pop back in 5. Thank you.
That it is actually
And we are live.
Right, so here we are back discussing the deputation that was presented to us at the beginning of our meeting today.
On your screen. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Aisha, for that. And thank you, team, for working on this recommendation for us to move this forward. So I have a recommendation in front of me that the Bay of Islands-Whangaroa Community Board provides support to Rainbow Rangatahi to enable, to enable celebrating Pride Month in Kirikiri, and request staff support Rainbow Rangatahi in their aspirations, noting the board's support. Right, I'm
There's a
happy
lot of support, whānau.
Yes, yes it is. And
Ngā mihi.
so I will move that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Manawai. And I will put that to the vote for those of us who are left. We've had one apology today, and we've had Lane Eyre and Frank Owen have had to leave the meeting to go to another meeting. So I am yes
Madam
to support
Chair?
that. Yes.
Sorry, can I just ask a procedural question, please? I don't know if I'm just overthinking things, but with me being present as quorum but not voting, does that matter?
You can vote,
be
Councillor
abstaining.
Smith. You are sworn in as a voting member. It is your choice as to whether you want to vote or not. You normally abstain. Sorry, Manawai, talking over the top of you there. So you are within your rights to vote should you so choose to do so.
It's more just, I'm just wondering whether or not there has to be 4 votes cast in order to meet quorum. If I abstain, if that doesn't. Aisha, are you able to give clarity on that?
I love how you challenged my thinking so early in the year. I'm quite confident that if you abstain, then we can still carry the vote by majority present.
Thank you, Aisha. I'm happy either way, Councillor Smith, if you want to vote as a board member or not. So I'm a yes.
Could I add? Oh, sorry.
Yes,
sorry, Madam
Manawai.
Chair.
Yes.
Just I think if it's in council standing orders anyway under section 10, looks good to me. Thanks for sending those tips and refreshers out, Aisha. And that's come in handy.
That was exactly the point.
You are well.
Right, so I'm a yes. We'll have another go. Manuela.
Yes.
Aye, Payana.
Madam Chair, I'm going to abstain just to give integrity to the resolution. We agreed that I'll abstain this term.
Yep, thank you. Right, carried by those present, thank you. Right, so with that, any other issues I have noted to add to our strategic plan?
Our strategic priorities.
Sorry, our strategic priorities list, refillable water for events. So normally we have just asked for water to be provided, but given the discussion today, I think we need to investigate further options of council or community board or combined community boards having a facility that we could perhaps use for events around the district or around our ward area. So we'll add that into our strategic. Is there anything else we want to add to our strategic priorities list?
I think we need to say small events for the water thing, because we want to support the smaller events for things like that, and I'm expecting a big event to actually provide their own water solutions.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, Manuwai.
Good point. There's another hand up there.
That would be mine,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Malema.
Just a reminder that while we moved option B in the action sheet report, we didn't move the entirety of that resolution. So we moved A, received the report. We removed. Sorry, we resolved
yes.
B, not A.
Thank you. So we've moved by Manuela, seconded by Frank.
Would we have to, aroha mai, Madam Chair, would we have to start a new motion?
So we're looking at B, are we? Result of the constitution for this convention.
We resolved B, and that was in favour, against, and abstain, but we did not do A, to receive the report.
Oh, apologies. So that was moved by Manuela and seconded by Frank to receive the report.
That's right.
So, Madam Chair, just to Member Wells's comment.
Yes, because Frank's no
just
longer
a slight
present.
Omission. You don't need to put the motion again, given that the member seconded it has
At the time.
departed.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So we'll consider that done. Anything else outstanding, Malema?
No, that was the last thing.
Lovely. Thank you. Right. Any more discussion around that or anything else to add to our priorities list? We have a roading matrix coming and hopefully a footpath matrix coming to the board.
I think Member Wells, Madam Chair, had her hand raised.
Just for the next meeting, can we look at adding this strategic priority around our supporting our rangatahi, so that if something like this happens again, we can put it under that strategic priority, our taitamariki. We had it in our original strategic plan, but I don't think we shifted it over to our strategic priorities, just to confuse everybody. And yeah, that's all I had to say. And I just wanted to say welcome to Dolly. No mai haere mai. Malema/Dolly. We've used the both names interchangeably over this meeting, so I'm sure our people out there, our communities, will need to know you as both names. And Belinda, you know, over the last couple of months since we've moved online, I just think you've done a wonderful job of facilitating our space online. So ngā mihi kia koe.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm getting used to it with my two screens and my paperwork, and yeah, it's challenging, but good developing new skills, right? Okay, I'd like to thank you all very much, those of you who are left here, and thank you particularly to the staff for joining us. It's always great to have the informed people there in the background to guide us and help us through our processes and make our meetings hopefully very productive. So on that note, I would like to ask a volunteer for a karakia for our closing prayer, please, for the meeting today. I've lost my chat, sorry.
Malema, would you like to be our volunteer?
Since my hand is still raised.
Would you like to do our close karakia? That would be delightful. You're welcome to.
Kia ino tātou, kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu kraiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhi ngā tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake. Ameni.
Thank you very much, Malena. And sorry for those of you for sitting 2.5 hours. Go and have a welcome lunch break.